April 24th, 2022. A quiet Sunday evening in Chippewa Falls, Wisconsin. Spring had just begun to warm the streets. Families were grilling in their backyards. Kids were biking before dinner. Nothing about that night hinted at the tragedy about to unfold. 10-year-old Lily Peters was one of those kids. She lived with her father in a modest neighborhood, surrounded by tree-lined streets and small houses where everyone knew each other's name. Lily was bright, outgoing, and endlessly curious, the kind of kid who could make friends anywhere. She adored her purple bicycle, the one she rode almost every afternoon to her aunt's house, just a few blocks away. That Sunday was no different. Around 3 p.m., Lily asked her dad if she could ride over to visit her aunt and her cousins. She promised she'd be home by dinner. Her father agreed. After all, it was only a short ride through familiar streets. The distance between the two houses was barely half a mile. Hours passed. The sun dipped low behind the trees. The clock struck 8. Still no Lily. At first, her dad assumed she'd lost track of time, but when he called his sister, she said Lily had left long ago. A feeling of dread took hold. He phoned Lily's friends, hoping she'd stop to play somewhere, but no one had seen her. That's when panic replaced reason. He called his relatives. He called neighbors. They grabbed flashlights and spread out through the streets, searching yards and alleys, calling her name into the cold night air. By 9 p.m., they still hadn't found her. With trembling hands, her father dialed 911. Within minutes, Chippewa Falls police arrived. Search teams formed. Volunteers joined in, combing every corner of the neighborhood. They checked playgrounds, schoolyards, the trail behind the Leinenkugel brewery, and the wooded area near North Grove Street, the shortcut Lily sometimes took home. Nothing. Then at dawn, an officer searching along the park's footpath spotted something wedged in the brush, a small purple bike hidden deliberately beneath branches. It was Lily's. The discovery changed everything. What began as a missing child search had just turned into a criminal investigation. Morning light crept over the quiet town as search teams continued sweeping the woods. It was around 9 a.m. when one of the volunteers noticed something unusual under a pile of leaves. A shoe. Seconds later, officers pulled back the branches and found what everyone feared most. Lily Peters had been found dead. The area was sealed off immediately. Police tape surrounded the trail entrance. Detectives, forensic specialists, and officers from neighboring counties flooded the scene. Even hardened investigators stood silently, shaken by the brutality of what they'd uncovered. At an afternoon press conference, Police Chief Matt Kelm confirmed the grim truth. The body discovered this morning has been identified as 10-year-old Lily Peters. This is now an active homicide investigation. The words hit the community like a thunderclap. Parents broke down in tears. Schools sent letters urging families not to let children walk or bike alone. The streets that once echoed with laughter now felt haunted. Detectives began working around the clock. They gathered surveillance footage from every nearby home and business, interviewed neighbors, and collected DNA samples from people who'd recently interacted with Lily. Rumors exploded online. Some claimed a stranger had been seen near the park. Others believed a drifter had passed through town. But the evidence told a different story. There was no sign of forced abduction, no vehicle tracks, no witness who'd seen a suspicious adult. Everything pointed to someone close, someone Lily trusted. Behind the scenes, the FBI and the Wisconsin State Crime Lab joined the investigation. Officers worked in shifts that blurred into exhaustion. They followed every lead, no matter how small. Then, 2 days later, the break they'd been waiting for came, not from a fingerprint or a camera. A local resident reported that on the night Lily vanished, she had been seen walking with a boy, slightly older, brown-haired, someone who looked familiar to the neighborhood. That small piece of information cracked the case wide open. April 26, 2022. Just 48 hours after Lily's body was discovered, Chief Kelm stepped before the cameras again. This time, his voice was steady but heavy. Earlier this evening, we arrested a juvenile suspect in connection with the death of Lily Peters. The suspect was known to the victim. We do not believe there is any danger to the community. Those final words, known to the victim, sent shockwaves through Chippewa Falls. Within hours, the truth spread. The suspect wasn't a stranger. He was Lily's 14-year-old cousin, Carson Peters Berger, the son of her aunt. A child had killed a child. Police executed a search warrant at the aunt's house, just a short walk from where Lily was last seen. Inside, they collected evidence, clothing, electronics, handwritten notes. Everything pointed to one horrific conclusion: the attack had been premeditated. According to the criminal complaint, Carson had lured Lily into the woods, claiming they'd explore together. Once secluded, he assaulted and murdered her, then hid the body beneath leaves before calmly returning home. Later that night, while family and neighbors searched desperately for Lily, he re-entered the woods to cover her remains more thoroughly. When investigators questioned him, the boy described the crime with chilling detachment. He provided details only the killer could have known. DNA evidence from the scene confirmed his confession. Authorities charged him as an adult with first-degree intentional homicide and first-degree sexual assault of a child. His bail was set at $1 million. Court documents later revealed a deeply troubled background. His father, Adam Berger, had served prison time for possessing explicit material involving minors. His mother had a history of domestic instability and substance abuse. Family members described Carson as intelligent but withdrawn, increasingly fascinated by violent imagery and dark online content. Still, nothing excused what he'd done. The community that once prayed for Lily's safe return was now reeling from the realization that her killer had shared Sunday dinners with her. He had hugged her, played with her, and smiled for family photos, all while harboring thoughts too horrific to imagine. In the following weeks, the courthouse overflowed with reporters. During hearings, Carson appeared via video from a juvenile detention center, expressionless. His lawyers argued that he was a damaged child shaped by a broken home. Prosecutors countered that the evidence showed deliberate, calculated intent. The judge agreed. Despite his age, Carson would stand trial as an adult. Months passed, then years. But in Chippewa Falls, time stood still. Purple ribbons, Lily's favorite color, appeared on every lamppost. Local businesses placed her photo in their windows. At her school, teachers kept her desk empty for the rest of the year. Adorned with flowers and handwritten notes from classmates, a memorial fund was established to support child safety programs across Wisconsin. The people of Chippewa Falls vowed never to forget, but forgetting wasn't the problem. Understanding was. How could a family tragedy this extreme happen in a town so small, so safe? How could a 14-year-old commit a crime with such cruelty and planning? And could it have been prevented? As investigators examined Carson's life, a pattern emerged: exposure to explicit violence, parental neglect, and early signs of aggression that went unnoticed. Teachers recalled odd behavior but never imagined it could escalate to murder. Social services had no open cases. To outsiders, the family seemed ordinary. For Lily's relatives, the pain was unbearable. They had lost their daughter, and the person responsible shared their blood. The betrayal ran deeper than words. Reporters covering the case described a courtroom heavy with silence each time her father appeared. He rarely spoke. He didn't need to. His grief filled the room. In 2023, Carson's defense attempted to move the case to juvenile court, arguing rehabilitation was possible. The judge denied it, citing the premeditated nature of the killing. By 2024, the Wisconsin Court of Appeals upheld that decision. The trial was scheduled for November 2, 2026, with jurors to be selected from another county to ensure impartiality. 4 years after that night, the pain in Chippewa Falls hasn't faded. Parents now walk their children to school. Kids no longer bike alone. The wooded path where Lily was found has been rebuilt, brighter and more open, but few residents ever walk it. The town's heart remains fractured, stitched together only by remembrance. In the church where Lily once sang during Sunday services, a purple bench now bears her name. At the ice cream shop she loved, a framed photo hangs above the counter. A smiling girl with bright eyes and freckles, frozen in time. For Lily's family, every small gesture keeps her spirit alive, but it also underscores the void left behind. She will never experience middle school, never graduate, never chase her dreams. All those possibilities ended on a wooded trail not 50 yards from her home. Her case became a cautionary tale about trust, awareness, and the unseen dangers lurking even in familiar places. Because evil doesn't always wear a stranger's face. Sometimes, it hides in the people we think we know best. When the trial finally begins, the world will once again hear the name Lily Peters. There will be testimony, evidence, and verdicts, but for her parents, no outcome will bring peace. Justice, no matter how thorough, can't restore what was lost. As the seasons turn, the community continues its quiet vigil. Each April, on the anniversary of her death, residents gather with candles at the park. They walk the path together, ending at the bench engraved with her name. They speak softly, telling stories about the little girl who loved her bike, her family, and her town. And when the night grows silent, the sound of crickets fills the air, the same sound that echoed the night she disappeared. It's peaceful, Almost gentle, but forever haunted by memory, Lily Peters was 10 years old. She trusted the world around her. She believed that home meant safety. Her story reminds us that the smallest cracks in that illusion can shatter everything. May she rest in peace, and may her memory keep every child a little safer, every parent a little more watchful, and every town a little more aware that monsters don't always come from the dark. Sometimes, they grow up right next door.